means that 3 copies of your data will be replicated within the same Azure region, but they'll be distributed across the different availability zones in that region. Geo-redundant storage means 3 copies are replicated within your primary region, as well as 3 copies will be replicated and placed in a secondary Azure region. And there are other redundancy and replication methods as well. You're more than welcome to go and read up on some of the Microsoft docs on exactly how those replication works. I'm just going to go with the lowest one, so the LRS option, and then I'm going to go next to networking. So again, this is where we configure how we want to connect to our storage account. So do we want to enable all networks to be able to access our Azure storage account, or only a selected few networks, or no public access at all, and this storage account can only be accessed via a public endpoint? I'm just going to open this up to all networks. You can also define some network routing rules if you want. I'm just going to leave the default one for now. And I'm going to head into data protection. So data protection, we can do things like configure how we want to recover some of the data stored inside our storage account. So we can turn on point-in-time restores for containers. We can turn on soft delete for the blobs. We can turn on soft delete for file shares if we're using Azure File Storage. We can turn on versioning for the blobs, and we can turn on the change fee for the blobs as well. So I'm just not going to turn any of this on because this is a demo storage account, and I'm going to head into advanced. Now, in advanced, we can configure some of our security settings. So do I want security transfer enabled? And I'm going to enable it. You can select the TLS version. So there is the option to pick from 1.0, 1.1 to 1.2. Just going to leave the default 1.2. And under blob storage, this is where you pick those tiers, those access tiers to your blob storage account. So if we enable public access, it means we can have public access to our blob storage accounts, and the access tier is where you choose whether the blob storage account will hold blobs under the hot tier or the cool tier. So I'm just going to leave these default configuration. Now, the data lake storage Gen 2 section is where we want to specify whether or not we want to create this storage account as a data lake storage. And so data lake storage is essentially an extension built on top of Azure Storage or Azure Blob Storage, so that there is a hierarchical file system that you need to define to store your blobs. And this is how you typically would set up a data lake in Azure. So I'm going to actually enable that because I want to set up that data lake storage. I can also come in here and I can set up my Azure file storage if I enable it. I can also set up tables and queue storage. I'm not going to do that for now, and I'm just going to go next to tags. And again, we can add some metadata to describe exactly what type of a storage account this is. So for example, I can say this storage is a data lake, maybe. And then I'm just going to go into review and create. And it's going to run that validation check to see that I've passed all the right configurations. And once that validation test has checked out, I simply hit create. And that's going to then create my data lake storage for me. This concludes the first part of Module 3. So let's go take a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and continue exploring non-relational data in Azure.